It is time to convene, unlock the doors, set the table. For the love of everything that is good, we need our heroes to return and talk about movies and television. We need the Council of the Multiverse. On today's council, Isaiah M. Washington, you may now be seated and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Council of the Multiverse podcast. It has been several months since we did an episode. However, we have huge news that needed the return of the podcast. The Council must reform once again, sadly. All the calls that I made across the multiverse, nobody was able to answer the call. So the Council is just me today. However, I'm being joined by a huge topic, one that brought us back from retirement, basically. Avengers 5 and 6. You may know them as Avengers Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars. There's a major shakeup. Rumored. It's reported. It's not official just yet, but it seems like in about a week, it may be official if everything goes according to plan. I'm not going to bury the lead. You know it. I know it. The Russo Brothers are possibly coming back to Marvel to direct these Avengers movies, and that is crazy, because first of all, let's get into the lore. Let's do a little lore dump real quick, okay? Russo Brothers directed Captain America: Winter Soldier, a banger. Directed Captain America: Civil War, banger. Then went back to back Avengers: Infinity War, Avengers: Endgame, banger, right? Yeah. So they have almost a perfect track record in Marvel, right? Then they left. They say goodbye, all right? They started producing movies, right? They produced one of the best movies I've seen in years, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. They produced that. They were in there. You know, they were in the back cooking, right? They weren't the main cooks. They weren't directing the movie. They didn't write the movie. They didn't do anything like that. They produced it. But, you know, they were cooking up. They were slicing the lettuce, right? They were doing something back there. They also produced the Extraction movies with Mr. Chris Hemsworth. They did that Cherry movie. They did The Gray Man, right? They've produced some movies. The thing is, these are not bad moves they've been doing, but they're not necessarily big moves. You haven't really heard of the Russo brothers out in the spotlight, out in the limelight in recent years. You know, they've been in the back. Maybe that's by design. Maybe it's not. I don't know. We can't speak to that, but I'm just pointing it out that that's what happened with the Russos since they left Marvel, right? Marvel, on the other hand, ever since Endgame, they've been doing these phases 4 and 5. And I think a good word for both of them so far are lackluster. All right, there's some good, there's some bad. I think overall, though, it's kind of just lackluster, right? For most of it, they've been focusing more on quantity instead of quality. Right? They're like, let's pump out all these shows. And the shows are like, oh man, these shows aren't very good. The movies are still, you know, the movies. You know, maybe you got a bad one here or there. That's fine. The shows, though, became the focus, and then they kind of ruined everything so far. They could still fix it, but it's kind of, you know, the hype is not there anymore. It got to a point where nothing really felt meaningful, right? Things were kind of just happening. All right, the show's coming out. All right, the show's going to do this thing. And then afterwards, let's just forget this show ever happened. Let's forget these events ever happened, right? Secret Invasion, that show happened, right? What came of it? Don't know. We don't know. I know when I was watching the show, they were trying to hype it up big. They say, yo, we're about to have a nuclear war with the entire world. Those are some pretty big stakes. While watching the show, though, didn't really feel like it. After the show, even less, right? And then, you know, they're setting up these plot lines. throughout these projects. You know, you got White Vision. He flew off somewhere. We haven't seen him again. Where is he? We don't know. You know, we got the Celestial in the ocean from Eternals. Captain America 4 is going to answer that. They're going to address it. However, the point is, Eternals came out in 2021. It's already been 3 years. By the time the movie comes out, it's going to be 4 years since we got that set up, and then it's going to be answered. And then through all these shows and movies, they got dozens of these things, of these story things, where it's like, okay, let's set it up, and then it's like, okay, you're gonna have to wait 3-4 years, maybe, for an answer on this one thing we set up. And there's so many of those, right? Like another one is Shang-Chi. Yo, remember when he met with the Hulk and Captain Marvel and all them? Yo, at this point, it's 3 years ago. They just had that meeting 3 years ago. We haven't heard an update on what that is. Even though in the scene they're like, holy shit, this is big time news. Where's this signal coming from? That seems pretty important. It's been 3 years since we had an update on it. I guess not very important, is it? I digress. Okay. You may be listening right now and you're wondering, what are you talking about? You're not even talking about the Russos right now. What's with all this lore dump that you're laying on us? Well, here's the thing. It brings me to the Avengers movies. Secret Wars, I don't think was, despite what the rumors are, you know, the Kang stuff, whatever, I don't think Secret Wars itself as a movie was ever in terrible danger. Even before the major stuff, I don't think that Kang would have been the big villain of this whole saga we're doing. I don't think he would have been the villain of Secret Wars. And I've believed this for a while. This goes back to like the rumors of Avengers 5 and 6 having different rosters. You remember that? They had different rosters. Avengers 5 is probably going to be a more grounded story, right? You know, you heard the thing where like Fantastic Four is not going to show up in Avengers 5 whatsoever, right? Infinity War and Endgame were originally announced as parts 1 and 2 of Infinity War, right? No Endgame, just parts 1 and 2. It was going to be a two-parter. That's how they sold it as. And that, I assume, when they're selling it as that, that's how they're approaching it. Then, later, of course, they changed it because they are different stories. Maybe they figured out while they're writing the movie or whatever. They're like, hey, these are two separate stories. Let's treat them as such. So then they changed it. Infinity War, Endgame, two different things now. I think Avengers 5 and 6, for the entire time, was going to be the same thing. It was going to be two different stories. And of course, there's probably going to be some plot lines and characters that are going to be featured in both. But the point is that both movies will have different objectives and purposes. It's just that, you know, before these Avengers movies, they knew the plan going into it, right? Again, why am I doing this lore dump on the Avengers movies, on the Russos, on what Marvel has done since Endgame? Why am I talking about all of this instead of the Russos? Well, I bring all of this up because it's important for me to say that I believe these next two Avengers movies are separate, so that I could go further and then circle back to the Russos and Avengers 5 and 6 and say, I do not believe that they should delay these movies. I've seen the discourse ever since this news came out a couple days ago. I've seen people talking about it. People are calling for delays to get the movies right. You know, they need time. You know, the Russos are coming in. Maybe they want to make major changes. So like, we need time to do these movies right. Let's delay it, right? And of course, these are Avengers movies. These are big time summer movies. Even though they announced Avengers 5 originally for, what was it, like a November date? if you're not going to do the thing where it's the back-to-back, as in Avengers 5 in the winter, and then in the summer do the next Avengers movie. If you're going to wait a year between these movies, they both got to be in the summer. You're not releasing a winter movie and then circle back one full year to where it turns into a year and a half between the Avengers movies. You're not doing that. So realistically, if you're talking about it now, you have two choices. You either do the winter into the next summer, or you delay it, but you have to delay both by a year. That's kind of how it has to happen. Right? You're not getting no February Avengers movie. That's not going to happen. Right? So, I'm saying don't delay these movies. I think it'd be a bad idea. The MCU output moving forward is already going to be reduced. Right? You got the CEO talking about, we are going to limit the output, focus on quality instead of quantity moving forward. Right? Which is a good approach. However, with that said, it's not like they're going to delay these Avengers movies, push them back a year, and then in those spots add like 2 more movies per year to fill in the gaps of the stories until we get to a point where we connect these loose ends in time for these new Avengers movies that they're spending more time on. I don't think that's going to happen. So, if they're not going to do that, that brings me to their lineup they announced 2 years ago. What was it like? Was it July 17th? It was something crazy. We're either very close as in terms of days from now, or we just passed it of the 2 years since they announced everything they're doing, right? Secret Wars, all that stuff. I bring this up because when they did that reveal, when they announced these Avengers movies, there was a handful of projects they didn't announce there, but that's it. Everything else they announced. They planned for a set amount of projects. That was the plan, right? They planned some of these storylines to be built up and introduced and not be brought back or resolved until the Avengers movies. That was their plan. So, I say if that's their plan, just push through it. Don't delay these movies. Don't try to put this Band-Aid on an open wound. Don't say we're going to take an extra year for both of these Avengers movies to fix these problems. You're not going to fix the problems that you've already created by just taking more time with 2 movies. That's not going to happen. Unless you're sitting there wanting to make 4.5-hour movies, right, for these Avengers movies that answers everything, you're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to fix this problem by just taking more time on 2 movies. It's just not going to happen. So just push through it and do these Avengers movies. We just got to push through it. Because, you got, with what we're hearing and what's been confirmed in some cases, like with the Fantastic Four, that's going to be a period piece, right? It's going to be in the 60s. That is confirmed. That's no longer a rumor. That's happening. Whether or not it's going to be in the actual 60s of the universe that we know, or it's going to be an alternate universe, whatever it's going to be, it's going to be set in the 60s, right? Pair that up with like rumors of Julia Garner's Silver Surfer not even going to be the main MCU Silver Surfer. I think it's obvious that they're just spinning their wheels a little bit until Secret Wars. Whatever Secret Wars ends up doing, whether it's going to be a soft reboot after that, a hard reboot, whatever it's going to be, it's obvious this is going to be the big one. Secret Wars is going to happen, and then everything after that is going to be wildly different. Right? Deadpool and Wolverine seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. Fantastic Four seems like it's going to be interesting. Captain America, Brave New World, trailer, by the way, looked incredible. This movie seems like they're going to do some really cool stuff. But with all that said, it just seems to me as if we are still just waiting until Secret Wars. We're just spinning our wheels. So let's just get there. Let's do it. Which brings me to my proposition, my proposal. I propose if we're not moving these Avengers movies, right? And then Avengers 5 is going to be coming out in a little less than 2 years from now. This is what we need to do. And it's not going to be a unique idea. I didn't come up with this idea, but I think it's a good idea, so I'm going to say it. Avengers 5, just make it Avengers versus X-Men. Let's just do that. You know, we don't need to worry about Kang. Kang can, you know, the TVA took care of him, right? Let's just say that they already took care of one variant at the end of season 2 of Loki. They already took care of one variant. Let's just say they took care of all of them, right? We're good. Kang is no longer a threat. Ant-Man, you could stop stressing out. Okay, he's not coming back for you. Let's just do X-Men versus Avengers. Make 2 huge spectacles. People out here ever since Endgame talking about, oh, we're never gonna reach Endgame levels again. They can never do it. I've always been of the belief if they have the right story, if they do a good build-up, they absolutely can. Infinity War isn't the only exciting story that they can do. They could do other stuff, right? And they did Endgame, which I'm not going to get into a whole tangent because stuff like this has been said for years. But it's not like Endgame featured all of the popular characters in Marvel. Endgame was very cool, but don't forget that, you know, most of the characters that were included are like B characters people didn't really know until these Marvel movies started coming out. They weren't able to include the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, Spider-Man in like a significant way to where, you know, like Spider-Man was introduced right before Infinity War, basically. So you have all of these characters that people already love beforehand that are much bigger than the characters that they use for Endgame. It is absolutely possible to, you know, be as big or even bigger than Endgame. I think it's entirely possible. And you do it by doing Avengers versus X-Men, and then the next year doing Secret Wars. That's how you do it. 2 huge, separate spectacles that, you know, share some plot lines, common characters to make them feel similar, that they're, you know, Avengers versus X-Men is going to build into Secret Wars, but that doesn't mean that, you know, like these other projects we've had where it's like, oh, it's building to another thing. And it's like, well, the thing that I'm watching isn't very interesting, but I get that you're building to something else. No, Avengers vs. X-Men is going to be its own thing. And then you can use that movie to resolve some of the plot lines, but it's not necessary. Let's just go big. Let's just go bad. Let's go crazy. And then hopefully it's going to help people forget about the hit and miss record that the MCU has. I'm just saying. You do Avengers vs. X-Men. Let's get crazy. We forget about trying to do all this Kang stuff. We just drop it. And then after Avengers vs. X-Men, let the Russos cook with Secret Wars. Let them back into the kitchen. Let's do Secret Wars. Let's get there. You know what? I'll even go crazy. I propose don't delay the movies. I say move the movies up. That's what I'll do. Yo, let's make 2026 a crazy year. Let's do summer Avengers vs. X-Men, December Secret Wars. Do that. That's, if you want to get crazy, let's do that. And then Secret Wars happens, and then we just start fresh, or whatever they're planning on doing after Secret Wars. Let's just get there as soon as possible. Let's stop spinning our wheels. You know, with the characters and stories we have right now, let's just go as crazy as possible. Let's forget about the misfires we've done. Let's have a lot of fun. Let's end it. And then we start back over with a clear plan and vision on what we're going to actually do next. That's my proposition. That's what I think. Those are my thoughts. I think Russo Brothers, I think this is the best case scenario. It makes me wonder where we would be with this MCU if the Russos didn't leave like that, you know? But that's where we're at. That's where we're going. That's my idea. Avengers versus X-Men into Secret Wars. Let's just go, man. Let's just go. Let's do it. You could still have Fantastic Four be that period piece. You put that movie out in... Oh, wait, no, it's coming out next year, isn't it? I was speaking as if they're not about to shoot the movie right now. You know, you just... Fantastic Four, you introduce Doctor Doom. Boom, there we go. Let's get crazy. Sign them up for Secret Wars. You know, it comes out next July. It ends. It's like, you know what? A year and a half from now, it's about to get nuts. That's the idea. That's my plan. Is it a good plan? I don't know. But I'm just going to put that out there. And I also heard, I didn't read into it at all. I have not seen a damn thing. I don't know if it's a real or not, but I hear that the announcements they're going to make next week at Comic-Con have been leaked. I've not seen anything about it, so I don't know if this whole podcast is going to become meaningless, because some people may know what the plan for Avengers 5 already is. I have no idea. So I'm just going to talk as if the leaks just didn't happen, because to me, they haven't. Also, it might be fun to listen back to this if I'm incredibly wrong. That would be hilarious. But big news, man. This is best case scenario, like I just said. Russo Brothers back there at Marvel. Hopefully, they sign on. They come out and talk at Comic-Con. It's this whole thing. And then they break the internet. Avengers versus X-Men into Secret Wars. There we go. And then Feige, if you're feeling feisty, bring up those movies. Sorry, Shang-Chi. We're going to use you after Secret Wars. Your sequel's going to have to wait until afterwards. All right, let's just bring these dates up. Let's get this over with. Let's have some fun and then start over. Let's go. All right, well, this has been the Council of the Multiverse podcast. The big return, I guess, with the big news. We might do some more podcasts soon. Deadpool, Wolverine. We may do a review, possibly. The council may reconvene to talk about that movie, the one Marvel movie this year. I may do another podcast soon, or maybe not, talking about the Captain America trailer and the Agatha trailer that also came out. I may have some thoughts. Those are going to be like smaller podcasts if I do those, because there's not really much to say, but there are things to say. But that's it. Council of the Multiverse, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.